Do you know this feeling when you have done something once, succeeded, and think that luck will always smile at you? I think most people are familiar with this feeling, but unfortunately, it is very deceptive. This is deceptive because a person begins to feel superior, stops paying attention to obvious things, and makes mistakes that can lead to terrible consequences. My unremarkable neighbor was one of those people who felt superior, and at some point made a mistake that helped me uncover my wife's infidelity. My name's Ned, and I've been married to Robin for 6 years. We have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. Robin stays at home with the kids. They've got me completely wrapped around their little fingers. Just hearing them say "Daddy" melts my heart. I'm usually the assertive type, but with Robin, I tend to defer to her equally strong personality. However, around her friends and family, I come off as meek and easygoing, not one to cause trouble. It's unfortunate how people like to stereotype others. This dynamic extends to the bedroom, where Robin typically sets the agenda for our nights. Don't get me wrong, we both enjoy intimacy, and I have no complaints. But recently, everything has changed. Just 6 weeks ago, I felt like a normal, sane guy. Now, when I look in the mirror, I feel like a different person. Maybe I'll end up in jail, or maybe I won't even be charged. All I'm doing is putting a couple of scammers in a difficult position. And strangely enough, I have the feeling that I am fulfilling my wife's wishes, albeit in a slightly non-standard way. But I absolutely do not care about her opinion. I'm a muscular guy who exercises regularly. I can easily lift 200 pounds, maybe even more if I pushed myself. But I don't want to injure my back. While carrying Spencer over my shoulder, I was thankful for my excellent fitness level. He was squirming and struggling until I pinched his nose closed, with his mouth taped shut, effectively cutting off his oxygen. "I can continue to hold your nose if you keep misbehaving," I calmly informed him. From then on, Spencer became very compliant. With a miner's light on my forehead, I navigated through the darkness. The temperature change was drastic. Outside, it was a warm summer night, but now it was cold and damp. The water drops helped to cool my overheated body. This was more intense than a morning workout. I had to stop several times as this journey took 30 minutes to complete. At each pause, I recorded the path I had taken. Once at my intended destination, I roughly dropped Spencer to the ground. This is what I think of men who interfere with other men's wives. Spencer tried to cover his vulnerabilities, but it was useless. Pent-up anger spilled out. I couldn't stand it and swung my leg a couple of times. I felt like a Hulk. Poor Spencer was in tears. After finishing my water bottle, I retraced my steps to find Robin. I carefully counted each stride, mindful of needing to navigate both out and back. My shirt clung to me, drenched with a mix of water and sweat. Spencer, who used to live a few doors down from me, is Robin's partner. I hope that it will turn into was soon. At least I will make every effort to do so. I stumbled upon this knowledge by accident, because it seems that I have been cuckolded for a long time, and they laughed at me behind my back. This is an insult to any man. When Spencer and his family moved in, a middle-aged man bought their house. Paul is a friendly guy, and I sometimes have a couple of beers with him at his house where Spencer used to live. So far, there has been no reason to introduce him to Robin or my children. He's a big fan of baseball, a sport that I've never been particularly interested in. But because Paul was an interesting conversationalist, I didn't mind watching baseball with him. However, about a month after moving in, Paul played a role in turning my life around. "Ned, you won't believe what I've stumbled upon. There is a stash of DVDs in the laundry room behind the false wall. You should watch them," he said. "I'm interested." "Adult content?" I asked. "Yes, it looks like it's a hidden camera recording. There must have been about 60 DVDs in 3 years. This one seems to be the most recent, taken just a week before I bought the house," he replied. Paul inserted the disc and the screen came to life. I took a sip of beer, sitting down on a bar stool. The camera angle was small, but it was clear enough that the man was Spencer and the woman was the one I recognized from the neighborhood gatherings. I believe her name is Sandra, and she is most likely married. This recording amused me because I saw my neighbor cheating on her husband with our neighbor. I did not expect such a sight. Do you know them? Paul asked me when he saw my expression. Yes, this is the previous landlord. He is married, and this woman is not his wife. She's married to someone else in the neighborhood. I think her name is Sandra, I replied. Let's see what else is on these DVDs, Paul said, switching to another one. Paul's phone rang, and he excused himself to take the call. 10 seconds after the release of the new DVD, I wanted to scream. What the hell? Robin, my wife, climbed onto the bed in her bathrobe. I watched in horror as my marriage was falling apart in front of my eyes. Suddenly, Spencer appeared in the frame, who, before climbing onto the bed, cast a fleeting glance at the camera and grinned, apparently knowing that only he was recording the haul. What happened next was a real horror for me. My good mood quickly disappeared. Instead, I felt a deep emptiness, overshadowed by the pain in my chest. My desire to harm both of them has increased. After Spencer finished, they lay side by side, laughing and chatting. What's new with the cuckold? He asked my wife. This pathetic guy. I made him completely eat your cream pie that you made, she said mockingly. Really? How did you do it? He asked. When I got home on Tuesday, Ned was in a good mood and clearly wanted something more. And you know I'm a smart woman. A couple of my light manipulations, and he's already eaten a pie, she said. I tried my best to contain my disgust. I thought Robin had butchered my love that day. What a lying woman. She and Spencer would pay for their arrogance. And then another blow followed. Do you know what I've been dreaming about, Spencer? So that we leave our partners and spend the rest of our lives together. Closing my eyes, I felt myself sinking into my own world. Paul's voice brought me back to reality. Are you okay, dude? He asked. Yes, it's just a little headache, I replied. Looking at the screen, I saw that Robin and Spencer had already rested enough to start the second round. I couldn't stand it and turned it off. I was fed up, so I told Paul I was leaving. Hey, Ned, before you go, do you recognize her? Asked Paul. Not really, just another woman next door. When was this movie made? I asked, trying to look as calm as possible. 2 days before the first one I showed you, he replied coldly. Trying to hide my anger, I said, well, at least it'll save you some money for adult movies. What a stupid girl. He cheated on his soulmate with everyone in the neighborhood, and she thinks he's interested in her. I left Paul's house as gracefully and quickly as I could and walked. Returning home now would probably lead to actions or words that I might regret. On the other hand, maybe this is exactly what I needed. By the time I got to my front door, darkness had enveloped not only the sky, but also my spirit. Robin was visibly upset, demanding, "Where have you been?" Avoiding direct eye contact, I replied, "I'm not feeling well. I'm going to bed." As I closed and locked the bedroom door, Robin's voice followed, persisting. "That doesn't answer my question. Where were you?" Collapsing onto the bed, I could hear the doorknob rattling. "Open this door." Unable to contain my frustration any longer, I swiftly opened the door and snapped at her. "Listen, find somewhere else to sleep tonight." Robin's eyes widened, not so much in fear as in disbelief. Slamming the door shut, I returned to lying on the bed, regretting that my outburst had awakened the kids. The quality of my sleep is controversial. When the sunlight filtered through the blinds, I still felt exhausted. The hot shower helped a little, but my legs remained weak. Since the children were still asleep, I moved quietly. Robin was waiting for me in the kitchen, where I poured myself a cup of coffee before addressing her. "I'm not sure what you think you know, but it was a shame to call me a derogatory term. It's extremely unlike you," she declared. "Oh, forget about it. You are a worthless, unfaithful person." "I've seen the footage," I answered calmly. I have no idea what video you're talking about. There must be someone else involved. She immediately began to justify herself. You are an ignorant, despicable person. Spencer recorded all your meetings on camera. I know what I'm talking about, and what I saw. I'm filing for divorce, I replied coldly. Robin's behavior quickly changed from outright denial to aggressive hostility, spoken with malicious intent. Spencer claims that you can't afford to divorce me. His brother is a lawyer, so he should be aware. I would have received custody of the children, child support, and substantial maintenance. In addition, you would be responsible for providing housing for me and the children. I haven't denied you anything, so it's only your fragile ego that's hurt. So what if I had a relationship with Spencer? Who suffered from this? Only your worthless ego. It doesn't really matter to me. Move on. I flipped my coffee cup over Robin's head, watching it smash against the far wall. Fortunately, there was no window nearby. Otherwise, my outburst would have cost me dearly. Robin stormed out of the kitchen, slamming our bedroom door behind her. Grabbing both her and my car keys, I left the house in a state of aimless frustration. Unsure of where I was going, I was sure of one thing. I no longer wanted to stay where I was. Ignoring Robin's calls, I was instead bombarded with text messages. "Why did you take my car keys?" she said. "Because I could," I replied. "Stop talking and acting like a child. It doesn't mean anything." "You are the one I loved," she said. "I can do without your fake love. What I saw on the recordings will never leave my memory," I said. "You'll forget about it. Please come home," she begged. Dan Hero. I refused to just walk past it. I understood that I wouldn't be able to keep it, but I withdrew all the money from both our checking and savings accounts. It wasn't a substantial amount, but I figured it was better for me to have it than her. Researching divorce laws in my state online only confirmed how flawed the system was. Living in a state with equal distribution laws meant that her infidelity didn't carry much weight. I decided to postpone initiating the divorce proceedings. Moving out wasn't financially feasible for me, so I returned home to find it empty. Robin's clothes were still there. I assumed she must have found the spare set of car keys and gone to visit her mother, who lived about 30 miles away. Despite not having initiated divorce proceedings, I had no intention of spending another day as a loving couple with Robin. Our rented 3-bedroom ranch house was fully occupied, leaving one of us destined for the couch. Since Robin wasn't present, she didn't have a say in who that would be. Upon her return, she'll discover all her clothes neatly placed in the living room. That night, I found myself alone under the moonlight, with no sign of Robin or my children. It was just as well, as thoughts of retribution against Robin still lingered. Instead of wallowing, I took it upon myself to destroy Robin's wedding dress, using box cutters with surprising efficacy. Our trusty paper shredder took care of any remaining images of Robin. Perhaps years down the line, my children may question the absence of cherished photos with their mother, but I can always attribute it to Robin's aversion to being photographed. Robin returned, but she didn't stay long. She doesn't seem to like the idea of sleeping on the couch, because I didn't see any other option for her. The time spent with the children really lifted my spirits. "How much longer are you going to play the martyr?" she asked ironically. "How much longer are you going to be promiscuous?" I answered. "Face it, Ned. It all started innocently, but once we crossed the line, he's better than you, and I'm not going to part with him. Help me move my things back to the bedroom, and maybe you'll be lucky and I'll stay with you. But it's unlikely." She made a condition. "I'd rather live alone than with a hypocritical and pathetic girl like you." "You're a terrible person, Robin," I said, and my nerves were on edge. "How about I just divorce your complaining self? Is this what you want? I can easily find someone else. Your kids can call Daddy. Think about it. You're going to give away your entire salary while some other guy enjoys my company and your kids. So stop it, or that's exactly what I'm going to do." She started blackmailing me. When I blocked her way to our bedroom, she made an offended and angry face, took the children, and left. A few days later, Robin and the children returned home. Robin looked confused. I was sleeping in my bed and Robin would lie down next to me. I pushed her to the floor whenever she tried to snuggle up to me. Listen, Ned, if you don't start fulfilling your duties as a husband, including intimacy in bed with me, I'll start bringing men home. Maybe that's what you want, isn't it? You want to sit there and just watch while a real man satisfies my feminine needs. Do you need that? Believe me, I can easily arrange this, she said, and I could not believe that this was being said by a woman with whom I had lived under the same roof for many years. I clenched Robin's tightly curled hair in my fist, pulling her closer until her face was just inches from mine. If you dare to do this with another man in front of my children, both you and he will suffer the consequences. Do you understand, scoundrel? For the first time, fear flashed in Robin's eyes amid the chaos. However, she couldn't resist provoking me as she rushed down the hallway, slamming the bedroom door behind her. You will pay me every month for the next 16 years, she said with obvious resentment. We didn't sleep in the same bed that night. The door remained firmly locked. Time was running out. It seemed inevitable that she would soon file for divorce, and the nightmares of how to support her and her lovers would become a harsh reality. Leaving a defeated man alone in his house every night for several hours is a recipe for disaster. Eventually, I found a solution that suits me well, though its success remained uncertain. I knew I had to take the chance. Waiting for the right moment, luck favored me. Just as Robin finished putting the kids to bed, she dropped the bombshell. I'm heading out for the night. Don't wait up for me. That was the trigger. As she exited the kitchen towards the garage, I sprang into action. Straddling her, I swiftly secured duct tape around her mouth, muffling any protest. Binding her hands behind her back, despite her struggles, I managed to stuff her into the trunk of her car. Checking her phone, I discovered she'd been in contact with Spencer. I needed him to take the bait, so I composed a message from Robin's phone. I can't get you out of my mind. Want to go skinny dipping under the moonlight? In less than a minute came the reply. Sure, where at? Lake Moore, off Highway 68. Park away from the lights at the north end. Got it. Be there in about half an hour. Grabbing the bag I had prepared for my own car, I tossed it into Robin's front seat. Concern for leaving the kids crossed my mind briefly, but not enough to deter me. I arrived at Lake Moore in just 20 minutes. Dressed in a light aqua wig matching Robin's usual style, I sat in the driver's seat clutching a handful of cinnamon powder in my hand. When Spencer pulled into the parking lot, he parked on the passenger side. After getting out of his car, he opened my front passenger door. Leaning towards the car, he exclaimed, "Hey, little lady, great idea." When he turned to me, he realized that it was actually me. Grabbing his hair with my right hand, I raised my left hand and blew cinnamon powder into his face. While he was coughing and choking, I pushed his head into the dashboard with my right hand. I quickly pulled Spencer out of the car. The powder turned out to be more effective than expected because of his disorientation. In just 15 seconds, I taped his mouth shut and tied his hands behind his back. I made sure to wear latex gloves all the time so as not to leave DNA traces. This is my message to men who betray other people's wives, I declared proudly. I didn't hurt him and hit him a few times to make him stop resisting. Understand who is in charge here. Although I may have shown gentleness towards Robin, I am ready to go further if necessary, I said. With an expression of obvious horror on his face, Spencer nodded in agreement. I suppose that updates you. Spencer patiently awaits my return. I could have left him alone, but I'm not that kind of guy. Instead, I opened the trunk and saw Robin's terrified face. She looked like she belonged in a horror movie, wide-eyed and tearful. Come on, Robin, it's not so bad. Let me guess. We can figure this out. You'll give up Spencer. It was just a fling. You really love me. You never meant to hurt me. Robin nodded repeatedly, but I couldn't believe a word she said. Sorry, babe. Too little. Too late. But don't worry. I'm not going to kill you. You'll meet your end naturally. Just so you know, remember the day you told Spencer you wanted to leave your spouses and be together forever? That's when you sealed your fate as a foolish cheater. Robin nodded slowly in agreement. 2 days later, he recorded a video in which Sandra is engaged in bed hobbies and cheating on her husband. You were just a passing infatuation for him and nothing more. It's almost funny how you believe that he was genuinely interested in you. Anyway, let's reunite the two of you. Robin made grunting and moaning noises, floundering in the trunk like a fish out of water. I pinched her nose and gave her the same warning as Spencer. I put Robin down and closed the trunk of her sedan. Like I was lifting weights, I hoisted Robin onto my shoulder and embarked on my 30-minute journey. Pausing only once, I followed my map back to where I had left Spencer. 80 steps, then a right turn, followed by 164 steps, a left turn, and so on -14 turns with no margin for error. Robin shielded me from the sporadic rainfall. Just as doubt began to creep in, there he was. Spencer made faint sounds as my light approached. With care, I seated Robin. There you go, kids. You can spend your lives together now. Wasn't that your wish, Robin? To be with Spencer forever? Dreams do come true, you see. Though I doubt you'll last more than a few days, but at least you'll be together. No need for thanks. You're welcome. And now, no more sneaking around. Remember what you called me, Robin. A hopeless wimp. Well, it's hard to believe that hopeless wimp achieved this, isn't it? Their pleading looks filled me with warmth. I was sure that I could manipulate them to fulfill my every wish. There is no unfulfilled wish left in my head. Now I'm done with them. They destroyed me emotionally and turned me into a monster who doesn't understand what he's doing. They can only blame themselves. You were both very smug when Robin tricked me into eating your so-called pie. It was the last straw for me when I discovered it. The way you both laughed heartily while discussing it. Thank you, Spencer, for recording this moment. You saved me the expense of hiring a private investigator. To the outside world, I still seem like a tolerant, cuckold husband. Their tears couldn't shake me. I dealt with them one by one. I needed to change their current image a little. And for this, it was necessary to untie them. But if Robin did not resist much, then Spencer, feeling that he had loosened his grip, tried to fall on me. After I disoriented him for a short time, he succumbed to my manipulations, and I finished the task. Robin, who was watching this, offered no resistance. It wasn't easy to understand Robin's words, but they seemed to express something like, "I'm sorry, Ned. Please change your mind. My children depend on me. I promise to be a better spouse and never betray you again." Let me outline the scenario for you, Robin. You and Spencer are currently deep in Eldon's cave, about 1,000 feet below the surface. Bears live in the cave, but rats pose an immediate threat. As soon as you relieve yourself, the smell will attract them, and they will start chasing. At first, only a few rats will detect you, signaling the rest of their relatives. Your fate is sealed when a whole crowd of them comes. Then you will have a hard time. Try your best to ignore them. It will be easier to get over it, believe me. I know what I'm talking about. It was as if I had electrocuted them, because they started trying their best to get out of my trap. It's quite appropriate, isn't it? You both behaved like despicable rats towards your spouses. You kept us in the dark, and now you're going to spend your lives in the dark. I took another bottle of water out of the pocket of my cargo shorts and wasted no time emptying it. Carrying these two cheaters made me sweat. You will need water to survive, so just dip your head into any of the reservoirs that you come across. But be careful, as some of them are deep enough to trap you. There are no sharp edges to grab onto, and they are so slippery that if you slip, you will never get out. Be careful when making your way in the dark, as the cliff can be hundreds of feet deep. Make one wrong turn, and you may end up 2,000 feet below the surface. Unlike you, I have humanity, and I'm just warning you so that it's easier for you to get out. but I don't think this information will help you in any way. Still, I had to warn you. Both were crying and breathing hard. I had to fix their legs with duct tape so that if anything happened, they wouldn't try to run after me. Everything was done for safety reasons. Now, I admit that I have some inclinations that I didn't even know about. I find pleasure in this situation, but I'll give you a chance to fight back. Usually, these jokes don't have padlocks, but yours does. I don't want you to scream and attract attention, although predators may come before people find you. I'm not that cruel, so I'll free your hands before I leave. You will need to cooperate to remove the remnants of the adhesive tape holding you down. It will be completely dark. Spencer knows this well, having been here for over an hour. Robin, let me demonstrate. I turned off my miner's lantern. If you've never encountered total darkness in a cave, you can't understand how disorienting it is. Turning on the light again, I felt relieved. Although I knew the way out, it would be almost impossible to navigate without the light. Do you still think that I'm going to support your messy lifestyle for the next 16 years? Now someone else will be a mother to your children. I'd like to know your last wishes, but honestly, I don't care. I hope that you and your creator will be able to coordinate your life choices. Just to make sure Spencer wasn't acting impulsively with Robin, I decided to postpone their communication. That's what I think about men who betray other men, who sleep with other people's wives. Any actions have consequences, man. If the other 10 guys didn't do anything, then the 11th will do everything possible to take revenge. Spencer tried to dodge my leg, but it didn't save him, and I disoriented him again. After freeing their hands from the duct tape, and while Spencer couldn't hear anything, I approached Robin and said, "If you're lucky and you get out of this terrible place," then I left the car at the exit. "It will have everything you need to start your life from scratch. I'm giving you a chance at redemption. But trust me, if you get out and run to the police, the consequences will be even worse. I hope you will make a reasonable decision," I said, and she waved her hand. I left, of course, without any remorse. I could hear Robin's muffled screams echoing in the darkness. The next day, an alarmed citizen reported the presence of 2 vehicles, triggering a comprehensive investigation. Despite being the seemingly unconcerned spouse, I was summoned for interrogation. My attorney steadfastly fended off the relentless questioning. I remained silent in the face of the detective's inquiries, lacking an alibi for the night the unfaithful disappeared. If the authorities believed they could incriminate me, they were welcome to try, but they never succeeded. The case remains as cold as Robin's heart was in her final months. No bodies were ever discovered. The sheriff obtained a search warrant for my residence, yet they found nothing incriminating. I don't claim to outsmart the system, but they couldn't tie me to the case. Perhaps if they had unearthed the skeletons, the outcome might have been different. I couldn't find peace of mind until I ensured the truth, so I arranged for DNA tests on both children. They were indeed mine. Shortly after Spencer vanished, a few DVDs found their way to his spouse. She needed information, so I persuaded Paul to duplicate some of them. We were unable to proceed with divorces until a year had elapsed, at which point we could file for abandonment. We stayed in contact, and our divorces were both finalized on the same day. Although she couldn't access the life insurance payout until Spencer was officially declared dead, she wasted no time in finding a financial supporter for herself and her children. I was genuinely happy for her. Trusting women is a challenge I struggle with. Year after year passes without any meaningful relationships. Several women tried to put me to bed, but the bravest succeeded. However, none managed to transform our physical encounters into lasting connections. I believe I fear revealing the terrible deed I committed if I were to get emotionally close to someone, and I foresee no positive outcome from that revelation. So much like the lyrics of that song, I find myself imprisoned in a solitary existence. My initial choice for a nanny lasted only 2 weeks. The second attempt led me to find the perfect nanny who would stay with us indefinitely. Danny, who happens to be older than me by a day, quickly bonded with the kids. Despite what my friends may speculate, our relationship is purely platonic. While she adores my children, she's wary of men just as I am of women. We complement each other well. Eventually, when I could afford it, I purchased a house. Danny moved in and has her own bedroom, where she's been living ever since. I see her as a sister, and she treats me like a brother. In an ideal system, situations like this wouldn't occur due to fair administration. However, since the system is flawed, such occurrences are inevitable. I've regained my composure once again. Oh, and one more thing. I have no idea if there's actually a single rat in Eldon's cave. I was simply toying with their minds. I'll apologize the next time I encounter them. I also want to mention that there were no bears in the cave. It was just an ordinary cave where the only danger stemmed from the frightened person's own mind. There were no cliffs or deep waters. All they needed to do was simply walk along the walls, and eventually they would find a way out. I am not a real monster. I just wanted to teach those two deceivers a lesson. I had no idea whether they managed to get out of there or not. But do I have any remorse? Absolutely not. I feel not an ounce of guilt. If anything, I feel like I did less than I could have. Spencer was a true monster, forcing other men's wives to cheat on their husbands. I shudder at the thought of how many married women he had on his list and could have had. It's truly terrible, but what's even more frightening is that these women continue to live with their husbands as if nothing happened. They don't even suspect that their wives could be cheating on them. And the children. What if they're not even theirs, and they're living in complete ignorance? To me, that's the most horrifying and contemptible thing imaginable. And do I have the right to tell all those men whose wives I saw on the recordings? Would that be the right thing to do? On one hand, yes, I would help open the eyes of naive men, but on the other hand, I could destroy dozens of families. And who ultimately benefits from that? That's why I believe it's better not to meddle in other people's lives. But if anyone dares to interfere with mine, I will fight and go to the end. I won't tolerate humiliation. I could have come to terms with it if my wife had approached me and said she wanted a divorce, but under one condition: if she hadn't cheated on me behind my back. Of course, I would have been shocked. I would have tried to work things out, to win her back. I would have gone to counseling sessions and everything else. But if nothing helped, then I would have let her go. That's the most favorable scenario, when a person doesn't break their marital vows and only seeks solace with someone else after the divorce is officially finalized. But how many cases like this do you know? Hundreds. Tens. They are few, and as sad as it may sound, most spouses don't want to ruin their marriage but still prefer to cheat on the side, and that's extremely unfortunate. Nevertheless, I believe that my ex-wife managed to escape, as I told her, and in that case, she either started a new life from scratch or is plotting revenge against me, along with her lover. But that's unlikely. Judging by her frightened and bewildered face, she learned her lesson for life. At least, I hope so. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.